What in the world is going on these days? I got into a back and forth on Twitter the other day where I sent out a tweet asking if anybody was caught up in the Haley Pham drama about her book Just Friends and all the hate she was getting about it. And this person responded that she is not an author, she is an influencer who published a book because it fits her brand, so I have no reason to read it. And it made me think about how the market in publishing and books and the world generally is changing. And I want to talk about all the trends in publishing as well as all the trends on social media. I'm going to start by talking about trends in the publishing industry, and I think there are three main trends. One of them, this is a really big umbrella term. This is a overarching umbrella term, but I think the publishing industry is publishing more books for underrepresented people. And what I mean by that is, first of all, we know romance and romantasy is huge, and a lot of those cater towards women. The hot topic of romantasy is going to slow down. It already has started slowing down, but I think we'll start seeing romance creep into every other genre. We might have mystery, but now there's a romance subplot that's very important. We might see thrillers with the same thing. We're also going to find more books on the LGBTQIA. You'll see more LGBTQ characters incorporated into fantasy. Heartstopper, Heated Rivalry are huge books that turned into TV shows. I think we'll also start seeing contemporary takes on the past. There are some areas of historical fiction that are well-tread ground, like World War II. But what we start to realize is that there are a lot of areas in our history that aren't covered, like the 80s, the 90s, and even the 2000s. Because the 2000s is considered history now. There's also a lot of POVs from history that we haven't discussed. A prime example of this would be The Woman by Kristen Hanna. The plot was centralized around the Vietnam War, which is a lesser known war than, let's say, World War II. And it was from the perspective of a woman who fought in the war. So in terms of historical fiction, I think we're going to see stories that we haven't seen yet and different angles to stories that we might already know, but it gives it a fresh perspective. Another example of this is the 2024 book James by Percival Everett, which explores the story of Huckleberry Finn, but from the POV of the slave Jim. These are stories that we have been told already, but thinking of a new way to tell them is going to grow in popularity. Another trend that I've been thinking about a lot lately are YA books. There's a general decline in YA book popularity, which is crazy to me because The Hunger Games, Divergent, these were all YA stories that for my generation was like the greatest things we've ever read. Like, these were the books that got so many people around my age into reading. But while YA books were declining, romantasy was skyrocketing, which makes me think about how ACOTAR was initially marketed as a YA fantasy. 10 years ago or so now, there wasn't really a market for romantasy, and unfortunately, I think misogyny came into play here. This was a fantasy written by a woman, so obviously it had to be YA, which is completely inappropriate, and no teenager should be reading ACOTAR, in my opinion. So it makes me think that now, all these adult readers who are reading romantasy books that were initially marketed as YA are just veering off of YA and going to the new genre that is now actually marketed as romantasy. The publishing house Entangled Publishing, which published Rebecca Yarros's Fourth Wing, launched earlier this year 2 new YA imprints, one aimed at readers aged 13 plus and the other aimed at readers 16 plus. So I think you see people now are realizing that YA is much too broad of a genre. A 13-year-old is going to want to read something vastly different than a 16 and 17-year-old. There should be books tailored to these different ages and the different maturity of these readers without exposing them to more mature content like ACOTAR. That's what I mean by underrepresented voices, is I feel like women are finally getting their appropriate space in the publishing industry now. So are young people. Women are finally not just being marketed as YA anymore, because that's disrespectful to women and inappropriate for YA readers, in my opinion. Another trend in the publishing industry is that of cozy fiction, which I also want to synonymize with comfort reads. These are books with low stakes, a lot of fun, minimal anxiety. As the world faces an ever-increasing amount of strain, busyness, and difficulty, readers are looking to books to have fun and enjoy themselves. So whether it's a cozy mystery, a cozy fantasy, an easy-to-read romance, people are going to these book genres for an escape. And a story doesn't have to be this super hard-hitting story to just be enjoyable. And then my third take in publishing is that I actually don't know if this would be considered in publishing, but I think in books in general, reading classics is becoming hip and cool again. I think this is in response to the literacy crisis and how a lot of people think that people can't read anymore, our attention spans are shrinking, sentences are too long, words are too complicated, and they're looking to classics as this way to battle that. Classics are stereotypically considered more advanced books with more advanced language, which I don't agree that classics are always more advanced. That being said, I still think they're worth the read. And honestly, if you're looking to battle the literary crisis, just read, period. Read contemporary fiction, read romantasy if you want to, just read. Moving on to social media and Booktok trends. Booktok has been getting a lot of hate lately, at least in my algorithm. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but I do think that as more and more books get published in these trending Booktok genres, people are going to be looking for the highest quality of those genres. And I think that will come with more criticism and more critical thought around these book genres, which I think is a good thing, right? I think we should always have critical thought towards the things that we're reading. I think people can read to enjoy. Books don't need to be perfect to be enjoyed. But I do think that as these genres get more and more popular, people will be looking at them with a more critical eye. And then finally, coming back to Haley Pham, I think that more authors will come out of social media and many people will have mixed thoughts about it. Like that person that responded to my tweet, a lot of people will not like it. There's still a huge narrative that influencers can't do anything other than create content, which I think is totally absurd because we see influencers doing the craziest stuff every day. Influencers are using their platforms to start businesses, clothing brands, supplement brands, you name it, an influencer is out there doing it. And I think that this is going to happen more and more with books. And I think that's fine. My personal opinion is that is totally okay. Why is it okay for indie publishers to market their books, but not an influencer to market their book? Why is becoming an influencer or somebody with a platform on social media, why is that seen as less than an indie author publishing their book in the ways that they know how? To me, becoming an influencer is just a marketing tactic for their books. You see what I'm saying? That being said, you still have to work on your writing. I haven't read Haley Pham's book, so I can't comment on that. But if you're wanting to build some kind of business off of your social media, it still needs to be a good business. And it's the same thing with books. If you're wanting to write a book and become an author and use the years and years of hard work that you built into your platform to market it, you still need to work on the writing. The writing is still going to be like one of the most important things that you need to work on. And on top of that, these influencers turned authors, they still need to be open to critics and criticism. That is just part of everyday life. That is part of every industry. But what I am saying is the world is evolving and social media is going to be part of almost everything now, including the publishing industry. There are subscription services which are now publishing their own books. Authors are offered profit sharing instead of advances. There's print on demand is on the rise, and collectible editions are becoming more and more popular. Self-publishing and personal subscription models are not only on the rise, but they are now seen as a totally valid, respectable, and sustainable way to get your books into the hands of readers while bypassing the publisher completely. There are many, many authors who do very well like this, and I think it's only going to increase in the upcoming years. This goes hand in hand with a general social trend of dislike towards old industries and institutions. People are increasingly unhappy with the social structures we see today. There's an increase in people rejecting the classic 9 to 5, Many people are questioning the value of university degrees and societal idea of success. This general shift away from old institutions, it's leaching its way into publishing. You have more indie authors, more self-publishing, and people becoming influencers to market their books. I am not a publishing expert, but I do think that this is a good thing. This is kind of reminds me of how when Taylor Swift was fighting for her masters, she didn't own the very art that she created, which was a huge problem for her. And she fought hard to get those masters back. People want ownership to get back into the hands of the people and not into the hands of these big corporations. Anybody out there who is a writer or a budding writer or even a book reader, I think we all want the author to get the fruits of their labor and not primarily the publishers sitting in an office. God knows how much their CEOs make. You know what I mean? I think, to me, this is a great thing. I think people should become influencers. People should become content creators if it means that in the end, the creative person who is making the art will benefit more from the selling of their book than the CEO in a high tower. Again, we still need to have a level of critical thought with the book. The book still needs to be good. Like, people still need to work on the writing. I think this is a positive thing, and I am not against influencers writing books. Okay, so those are all the trends that I think are going to start happening more and more in 2026 as we enter the new year. I hope they start happening at least. I would love to read more underrepresented voices, more underrepresented stories. Again, I think the creative should reap the benefits of their rewards. I would love to hear your opinion, hopefully in a kind manner. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.